episode 130 of the podcast. This week, I'll give you 3 questions to ask your owners that will give you a huge amount of information about their dog's behavior. What are those 3 questions? Find out this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. When I'm talking to a new customer, or sometimes even an old customer with a dog who's behaving differently from me, but anyway, when I'm talking to a new customer, or an old customer, I have 3 questions that I ask to find out more about the dog's behavior and what goes on at home. Now, these questions are not yes or no answer type questions. The owners really have to construct the picture in their head. They have to think about these. They have to answer with a full sentence. Now, they might think back to a particular situation, or they might not know. Now, are you ready for these questions? Here we go. First question, what does your dog do when they don't like something? Now, some owners need examples, and so I've given plenty of examples over the years. It depends on the dog, but I might say, what does he do if you try to brush him, if he doesn't want to be brushed? What does he do if he doesn't want to be toweled off when he comes out of the rain? What does he do if he doesn't want you to give him a medication? See, now we're giving the owners something to think about. And there's a story. They can't just say, he's good for that. Nope, what does he do? What does he do? And it's important the way we word it, because we want a story. We want them to tell us what he does. Now, we've jogged their memory, and now they have to tell me what he does, what happens, how it plays out. They have to remember that many of our owners have only had this one dog. They don't know what's normal or what's abnormal. They just know this one dog. And often owners think that what their dog does is totally normal, even if it's not. That's why some owners don't think to tell you that what their dog will do if he doesn't like something. They're like, you're the groomer. Don't you know what dogs do when they don't like something? Of course he does that. So we need to ask them, what does he do? What does your dog do if he doesn't like something? Be straightforward and wait for an answer. Because there's going to be something that the dog didn't like for most people. I mean, there's the occasional dog that is just a rock star about everything, but at some point there's been something that dog didn't like. And what does he do? How do you know he didn't like it? Okay? This is a really important question. No, you may not have the answer you want. That's okay. We're just going to go with the next questions. This is to discover what happens at home, but also for the owners to be discovering a little bit more about the dog's behavior and how that can impact grooming. All right. Anyway, now you have your answer to the first question. So here's question 2. And question 2 is going to sound kind of similar. What does your dog do when they want you to stop? It's a little bit different than what does he do if he doesn't like something. Now it's what does he do if he has decided he wants you to stop? And it's similar to question 1, but different because now we're taking it further to a dog who doesn't like it and is now expressing to their owner that they've had enough. And this question is also open-ended. There is no easy yes or no. They have to search. They have to think about a particular event or search their brain for when it's happened before, play it back, and describe it for us. And this is another spot where less experienced owners may say things like, he's good. He just puts his teeth on your hand. Yeah, yikes, glad I asked you what he does, Like, oh, he just puts his teeth on your hand. I think every groomer has heard that. Now, people who aren't groomers might be thinking, what? That sounds to me like he's trying to bite or he's warning you about a bite. Yeah, because that's exactly what it is. That's a dog that's warning you that he's willing to bite you. If we don't ask owners, you would be surprised how many owners forget to tell us things like that. Really? You didn't think that was important? Oh, he would never bite. Because he loves you and lives with you and knows you, but I'm a stranger with a clipper. So ask the second question. What does he do if he wants you to stop? Now, question number 3. We're continuing this process. We've got these 3 questions. Question number 3. What does your dog do if you don't stop when they ask you to stop? Wow. Yeah. So think about that for a minute. How many owners don't stop when their dog asks them to stop? Not many. And in my experience, for the most part, most of them are like, oh, geez. Oh, okay, buddy. Oh, it's all right. 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 And so it's really rare that they have continued to press. So what does the dog do? Sometimes you're going to find out the owner doesn't know. They have no idea. They're like, well, why would I do that? He's asked me to stop, you know? Or they have pushed it and they're like, well, you're going to need a muzzle. Well, that's not a good answer for me. Like, I don't want to know that I'm going to need a muzzle. He hates this stuff and he's going to ask you to stop and he's willing to hurt you if you don't stop. Just put a muzzle on him and everything's going to be great. But because we've asked the 3 questions, we have them thinking about it. They are now disclosing to us, whether they realized it or not, the kind of experience that we might expect from their dog. So these 3 questions are really important so that we can get more information about what this dog is likely to do. Now, a lot of people, like I said, have never tried to push it. And some dogs are really pretty good for everything, but don't have experience. So we don't know what they're going to do if they find something they want us to stop. We don't know. Kind of a wild card. They've never been in a situation where they asked anybody to stop, so we don't know. And that's okay. But these questions paint a picture of what to expect and what you might see while you're grooming. You may have a dog that's going to be great, but if we don't ask these questions, then we won't know. Now, I ask these questions for everybody. This isn't just if I suspect a behavior problem. I ask everyone because remember, the owner may think that their dog is doing what all dogs do. And you can avoid surprises by knowing what to expect. Because I cannot tell you how often I've heard owners say things like, well, of course he hates having his nails done. Well, what gave you that impression? They're like, well, dogs hate that. I'm like, what? That's very broad. Plenty of dogs are fine for that. Like, no, I've heard that dogs hate that. So of course he's going to behave that way. We need to know exactly what they think their dog is going to do in a variety of ways, because if not, they might think that's totally normal. Like, well, yeah, I mean, how's he supposed to tell you he doesn't like having his ears touched if he doesn't scream? Like, wow, right? A lot of owners have only had this one dog. This one dog. Think about how many owners are still like, boy, he has a personality all his own. You're like, of course he has a personality all of his own. Many of our owners are just not real dog savvy. So these 3 questions guide them through. Now, if you've been listening to the show or have been to any of my talks, you'll know that I have a safety policy. And if you're new to the show, don't worry about it. I'm going to go over it in a minute. But I do tell every new customer about my safety policy, and I usually do that after I've asked my 3 questions. There's a reason for that, because I want them already thinking about the way their dog may behave that might not be safe before I talk about my safety policy. So those 3 questions again. What does your dog do if they don't like something? What does your dog do when they want you to stop? And what does your dog do if you don't stop when they ask you to stop? And the reason why I wait until I get those answers is so that they're already thinking about what may happen. Now, this is my opportunity to explain that during grooming, we may be doing things that they don't like. They may try to tell us to stop, and we need to teach them to feel comfortable with the stuff and things so that we can continue. If the owner wanted a perfect trim but also has just described a dog who will try to hurt us when we don't stop when he wants us to stop, we've just helped them understand the problem. We've helped them discover it on their own. Like, oh, right. Gosh, he wouldn't let me do whatever, and I wasn't trying to put something sharp next to his eye, So when we go through and talk to them about it, we have all of these steps that they work themselves through. And because we're asking them to describe it, they have to kind of pull an event into their mind. Okay? This is really, really helpful for us as human beings when we're trying to learn something, is to go back and pull an event out of our mind. Like, oh, come up with our own example. It's why I give so many human examples, because when we have something we can relate to. Because when we ask these questions, now the owners, we have something to work with when we say, what do you think he will do if he doesn't like me clipping his pads? Oh, well, gosh, I think he might do the same thing he did to me and my husband that day when we were trying to do something with his foot, right? We have something to work with. And so when we talk to them about the safety policy, which is in the next part, it's going to make more sense to them. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. So here is the safety policy. I discuss this with owners. I discuss it before we even book a dog, because I'm house call. So I don't even want to go into their house if they're going to be like, it has to be perfect. That's what we're paying you for. We as an industry, groomers, my fellow groomers, we as an industry need to get away from this idea that we are selling perfect trims. Okay? It can't fit in a box. It can't fit in a can. It can't be shipped. Trims and grooming sessions are very individual, and it's based on our time and our effort. Okay? So we need to get away from this idea that, like, it has to be perfect. That's what I'm selling. You're not necessarily selling perfect trims. We have a lot of dogs who are not well prepared for our services. Oh, what happened there? Yeah, a dog that's not well prepared for our services. These people are coming in with dogs that are not well prepared for what we need to do. And that's not our fault. Grooming's pretty much like, hey, we've been begging people to teach their dogs to be good for grooming. So it's not a new idea. Dog training's not a new idea. Every darn fool in the United States who gets a dog thinks, oh, most people take them to training. I wonder if I should do that too. So we need to think about, when we have a safety policy, we can talk owners through how we address safety problems and behavior problems, and that behavior problems are safety problems. So I explain it to my owners, but I also, when I book their appointment, all of my owners sign this. And I use a scheduling app, so it sends it out as a text, but they sign it. It's not a legal document. It's more of a position statement. It's a heads up as to how I do business. But here we go. My safety policy. To provide the highest level of care for your pet, I have a safety policy. If at any time your pet gets nervous, anxious, scared, aggressive, or even overly silly, I will slow down and help your pet be comfortable and calm. It's very important to me that the pets in my care are kept safe and stress-free. I use sharp tools and need to prevent injuries. I will work with your pet to help them feel comfortable. This will build a great experience for successful grooming for your pet's lifetime. Your pet may not be groomed to perfection today. I will charge for the time that I spend working with your pet. I have them sign it. Again, not a legal document, more of a position statement and a heads up that they're going to be charged for my time and effort, that the dog's behavior may prevent me from finishing, and that there is a safety concern. Now, we may think that safety is obvious, but the average owner is kind of shocked by it. Because when I talk about safety, they're like, what? Why would they use sharp tools on my dog? I don't know what they think we cut hair with, but relax, take a deep breath, expect that question so that you don't look at them like they're dumb, because they're not. They just have no idea. I think people assume we're using some sort of safety equipment. Safety equipment doesn't cut hair. So even if you're using clipper blades can nick a dog. Even if you're using blunt tip shears can still slash, like there's still poke. They can still cause injury. And because we just walked them through what their dog does if he doesn't want us to do something, what he does if he asks us to stop, and what he does if we don't stop when he asks. We just walked them through it. Now we can apply it to the grooming process for them if they have further questions. Wait, are you saying that he might not be perfect today because we have Christmas pictures coming up, or we have family coming over for the weekend and he needs to look beautiful? His last groomer always got him beautiful, I think we've heard like every reason why a dog has to be beautiful today. But if we remind them, you just told me a whole story profile of what he might do if I just keep pushing. And so if I just keep pushing, we are likely to cause an injury. And I don't want to do that. My goal is to help your dog be comfortable for it. Now, on the show, we talk an awful lot about calm, comfortable, and cooperative. Now, if we also wrote down in there that safety is important for your dog's lifetime, right? We can work with your dog to help them be comfortable for it so that we can have a lifetime of grooms that can be perfect. Because the dog who's good for it is a dog that we can do perfect trims on. And isn't that what we want to do? Oh my God. A dog who's calm, comfortable, and cooperative, understands all of our tools, knows what's happening, lets us do whatever we need to do, and we can just groom, right? That's the dog who's been prepped for our services. So I want you to be thinking about talking to owners after this. Like, we've asked them our 3 questions, we've presented a safety policy. There's more discussion probably, but you know what? A lot of the time that's when owners are like, oh gosh, that makes a lot of sense. Never thought about it, because they're not groomers. And many dog professionals who are not groomers haven't thought about it either. In fact, I will say, I used to be a vet tech, and I know so many people are teaching them to be good for the veterinarian, and that's great, but it's a different process than teaching them to be good for grooming. And I remember when I was a vet tech, trying to explain to them, I'm like, really? Do you think you could keep this up for 2 hours? And they're like, 2 hours? What? Like, yeah, because grooming doesn't take 5 minutes. We're not doing it in 5 minutes. Most of the things that we would do in the vet's office that are actually a challenge are probably a 5-minute challenge, And I worked with a vet who did a half-hour exam. She was really thorough, but so much of that was talking to owners. It wasn't a dog on the table being lifted and moved around and soaked and clippered and turned on a dryer and all this other stuff. It's a very different thing. So even other dog pros sometimes don't quite get it until we describe, so what do you think happens when we have to use clippers over his entire body? It's not like we're going to stop part way. We might need to stop. If he doesn't like having his front legs touched, that's going to be a big problem. Before we start grooming, we need to talk about it. So how can that be a safety issue? Okay, that could be a safety issue because if he's kicking at the clippers or kicking at shears or pulling on his own neck trying to get away from us, those are safety issues. Or trying to hurt us. It's another version of safety issues. That could be biting, that could be scratching, that could be just flailing and pushing into us and stuff. I don't like getting all scratched up. That's not my job. That's a dog who is poorly prepped for the grooming process. And to my animal colleagues who are not groomers, trainers, we need to be really thinking about the grooming process because it is really important in so many dogs' lives, especially with so many doodles out there. There are so many poodle mixes and they require a significant amount of grooming. So if we start thinking in terms of these dogs need to be prepped before they go to the groomer, it's not the groomer's fault. Not the groomer's fault. Groomers get thrown under the bus, and we are seeing dogs that are not well prepared for the kind of things that we need to do. So asking our 3 questions, what does your dog do if they don't like something? What does your dog do when they want you to stop? And what does your dog do if you don't stop when they ask you to? Our 3 questions, followed by a safety policy, makes it very, very clear. Expectations are very, very clear. That I want your dog to be successful and I want your dog to be calm and cooperate with me and I want to teach them so that they can be comfortable for their lifetime. And your dog doesn't seem pretty well prepped for this. So we're going to have some stuff to work on. By asking these questions, you won't be surprised if something happens. You're prepared for it. And your owners are thinking about, oh, things could go wrong. Things could go wrong today. Maybe he's not going to think that this is a wonderful day at the spa. Maybe he's not going to be able to handle it well, but I feel safe with how my groomer is going to handle it. And I feel comfortable paying my groomer for my groomer's time because that's important too. And we aren't going to get bullied by owners if we discuss it with them. And if they choose not to, goodbye. I'm sorry you feel that way. Right? We've already discussed all of the risks and what's likely to happen based on what you've told me. I'm sorry you feel that way. Bye. So the 3 questions will keep you out of trouble. They can really help keep everything under control, assess the dog, know what you're getting into, and have the right discussion with the owner. If you'd like more information, you can find me at chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.